designing a water feature for specific types of aquatic plants.
We got a bunch of water lilies. Some of them are hybrids. They're particularly selected for their beautiful colors on their flowers.
We want to run out to a couple different projects so you could actually see firsthand what it's going to be like to actually install these plants. Remember, this is living water. We're trying to create water the way nature intended it. Hey, what's up everybody? Ed the Pond Professor here. I am coming to you from our corporate headquarters, Aqualand in St. Charles, Illinois, also known as the water garden capital of the world. We are here at our retail store because I am picking out aquatic plants. I love doing this type of stuff because it's these finishing touches that make all the difference in the world on our projects. Two projects I'm working on. One is the Cantini Garden Project, which was that glacial pond that we did last year. The other one is that incredible recreational pond that we created over in Omaha, Nebraska. So I am heading out. I'm actually going to load everything up. I want to have a nice mix of water lilies for inside. I'm looking for some different marginal plants. Let me show you a little bit of a difference with some of these guys here. So if you're not familiar with them, in this tank here, you can see these are all submerged plants. There are some floating plants in here. So this is called water lettuce. So it's got a little root structure hanging off of it. It actually just floats on the surface and it just reproduces like crazy. So you're going to get all these little things that are going to start popping off the side, kind of vegetative reproduction. So it's going to kind of pop these little guys off and it's just going to continue to grow and spread as a big giant mat. The other thing we have in here is water lilies. So this is that typical plant that you see all over the place. It's got these beautiful floating pads. Actually, this one a little bit beat up. The plant itself is down submerged below the water and then it sends up lily pads. Now the other plants that we have here, these are called marginal plants. They're in trays of water. This container right here has water, but just the feet of the plant are in it. These plants can go in different depths of water, which I'm going to show you a little bit later with drawings so you can see exactly what it's going to look like from a cross-sectional perspective. We have some incredible irises. Show you what some of those guys look like because we have a lot of them right over here. You can see this big bed right here. These are all irises. So those are yellow flag iris. You can also see them over here on the other side of the pond. These are going to be a beautiful transition point between the water and the surrounding terrestrial zones. We have some variegated sweet flags down over here. We also have lobelia. So this has an incredible, I mean, just look at that color on this plant. It's going to have a big red spike coming out the top. We also have some tropical plants as well. So what I'm going to try to focus on is going to be those hardy plants. Something like this golden sedge. This will come back year after year. So I'm looking for some plants right now that are going to go inside of our wetland filter. And we're going to plant that up with different types of aquatic plants. The root systems themselves are going to go down into that gravel bed. They're going to absorb all the nutrients. One of my favorites right here is Creeping Jenny. Really tough and durable. Actually will handle a little bit of foot traffic. This is a great plant for tucking in right along the edge where the boulders meet the water and the rest of the terrestrial surroundings. Everything that we're using here is tried and true for the Chicagoland Zone 5 area. I like to work with plants that I know are going to work well. I want to have consistent results, and the plants that we have here on site are going to deliver for us. Here are more of those beautiful irises, and just a staple in the water feature industry. Very tough and durable. They have a shallow root system which is going to creep and spread itself in between the rock and gravel. That's where it's going to absorb all the nutrients. And also what's interesting is that root zone becomes biologically very active. So lots of different species of microorganisms are going to be associated around these root zones of those plants. Got all this incredible growth of new water lilies popping up. Well, I think you've heard this before. Build it and they will come. These are all the geese that were probably born on our roof. Some of these guys I think I may have rescued. I'm probably pretty sure of it. So I want to show you our wetland filter over here, which is just awesome. I mean, check this out. Iris is popping up. We have some other little cattails in here. We actually planted these bald cypress right in the wetland filter. Pretty bold move actually, because those guys can have an aggressive root system. It's going to kind of penetrate its way through, but because of the size of the wetland filter here, I was okay with it. Remember, this is living water. We're trying to create water the way nature intended it. It needs to be healthy water, it needs to be clear water, but it also has to support life. We want water lilies, we want growth inside of it. And algae, as well as different types of higher plants, are an important part of that equation. Another important part of the equation, obviously, is going to be fish. These are grazers. They're going to be down in the bottom. They're going to feed on some of that algal growth inside. You can see it's harder for them to get up here in that shallow area versus the bottom section. And then we also have waterfalls. Those waterfalls are important because they're going to help to oxygenate the water naturally. Remember, this is an aquascape ecosystem. There are multiple parts to this system in order for it to function properly. It starts with that gravel layer, that rock stone layer on the bottom. For that Cantini project, we talked about it quite a bit because it was part of a glacial design. So whenever we're talking about glacier designs, I'm talking about boulders and landforms and geomorphology and all types of cool things like that. But it's an important piece. And then we obviously have water, we have different types of animals, we have aquatic plants, we have microorganisms, all these different things working symbiotically together to create a beautiful aquatic paradise.
$1,000. Click in the Salutations, everybody. We've got Colonel Copepod, Lieutenant Rotifer here. We have some exciting news for you coming to you from the Team Aquascape channel.
I know you were probably really enjoying whatever the heck Ed was saying, but it can't be nearly as entertaining as this. We are giving away not $1,000, not $2,000, but $5,000 worth of Aquascape product. That's what I said. That's a whole Ed Baloo. Hey, you guys want to hear more about this? Follow Team Aquascape. We're going to be putting out more and more information about this, but in the meantime, click on the link below. Click. You know how to do all this.
$5,000 in pond product. That's all you need to know. Come over to Team Aquascape channel. Find out more. Let's go.
I am coming to you from my office today, and what I want to do is I want to go over a few things when it comes to designing a water feature for specific types of aquatic plants. As we know, we're going to have a variety of different things located inside of our ecosystem ponds, and all these pieces work together synergistically to give us the desired results. And it all actually starts with the excavation, because the excavation is actually going to set the proper elevations that we're going to place our boulders inside. And then once we have the boulders in place, and we're going to cover everything with river rock, and once we have all those elevations and the rock and the gravel in place, then we're going to come in and we're going to plant it with specific types of aquatic vegetation that are going to grow in those specific zones. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So here we are, we have our perimeter grade going around the outside edge. And we're going to have kind of a little bit of a drop right away. That first ledge is going to be anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of water depth. But let's just say it's going to be 8 inches of water. So 8 inches of water actually means that we're going to need to dig down approximately 12 inches below grade. So this elevation right over in here is actually going to be right around 12 inches. And that's because we're going to have 8 inches of water, we're going to have a little bit of gravel, and we also need that liner going up above the water level to hold everything in place. Then we're going to come across and we're going to do a little bit of a shelf, then we're going to drop down again, and we'll keep working our way all the way down to that finished elevation. So now what we're going to do, once we have those elevations set, we're going to come in here and we're going to actually place some boulders inside of there. The main thing is we want to hide that rubber liner. Now, if the rocks are not big enough, you could easily stack multiple on top of each other. What you want to be careful for, though, is you don't want to have a stack of 3 rocks or more in height, typically, because once you start going more than that, it starts becoming unstable, as well as it doesn't look quite as natural as we'd like it. So once we have that first rock in place, then we're going to come down here. This bottom ledge, I'm going to say let's do 2 rocks over in here. So we'll place a smaller one, a little void space in between the liner and that rock. So that little place in between, we're gonna fill that in with riverstone. So now what we're gonna do on top of that little bed, right in this little joint here, we're gonna come in with another small rock. It makes the installation very, very quick, very efficient, and that's because the smaller rocks are gonna give us more surface area. It's gonna cover more stuff. As you can see, this elevation right over here is higher than this edge. It's higher than that liner edge. And that's because I want that boulder that I place in that lower ledge to actually act as kind of like a bumper. It's actually gonna stop that gravel from kind of falling off that edge. So now we're gonna come in here, and I'm not gonna draw all the little pieces of river rock, but we're gonna say this is all river rock in between there. Now down here at the bottom, same thing. We'll have a big boulder, multiple boulders, whatever it happens to be, and then that gravel will kind of come into play. I said we wanted approximately 8 inches of water. I'll leave this little joint right back here behind this boulder. Fill that in a little bit with some of that river rock, but now as you can see where that water level kind of comes across right in here, it's just making a little shallow, saturated area. This is the perfect location for some of those low-growing, creeping plants that could actually root themselves into the gravel, wet river rock, but they're actually gonna kind of grow and they're gonna kind of spread. So that's for like the creeping jennies, aquatic forget-me-nots, the mazes and things like that. Helps disguise some of those boulders along the edge. So that is a nice little trick that you can do. So we wanna hide some of those boulders. We wanna mix that transition point between the terrestrial plantings, and again, we're gonna have terrestrial plants over here on this side and things like that. So we want to try to blend all those different things together. So it all starts with that excavation as well as the rock placement in order to get everything at the right level. Now this 8-inch zone right over in here, so this is perfect for marginal aquatic plants. I'll actually kind of scrape away some of that gravel and I'll make like a little depression. And then I'm gonna come in with my aquatic plants. But for marginal aquatics, I'm typically pulling those plants out of the pot. I'm gonna knock off the majority of soil off of the root systems. I wanna force those plants to utilize all those nutrients in the water. And I'm gonna place it down here inside of this little mass. So now I'm gonna have, and I'll just say I have this sweet flag. Terrible drawing of sweet flag, but as you can see, it's just a big leafy green plant. Then I'm gonna have that root system, and I'm just gonna kind of push it down inside of the gravel, and then I'll mound up the rest of that gravel in and around it. And this is why it's important to have that one boulder. This guy right over here, you want to make sure that that one is up high enough. This will allow you some fluctuation. It'll allow you to actually push that plant into position. Now this next ledge down, now this spot here, a little bit different. So this area here, typically 18 plus inches or so in depth. That's the perfect water depth for water lilies. Now water lilies could actually grow in much deeper water, grow in water 4, sometimes even 5 feet deep or even more. But I'm gonna say I like to plant water lilies typically in the 18 to 36 inch range. Those I'm gonna leave potted up. The reason being is I like to be able to add fertilizers and things in there, and that fertilizer, we want it to stay right around that root zone. I'm gonna move that gravel out of the way, and then I'm gonna place this plant into position, and it's going to sit right on that little ledge. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill back around it with all of that river rock and things, and I might come in here and drop in a few more bigger boulders and things like that just to hide that potted plant. And it's going to send up these long leaf structures, and they're going to actually have these lily pads that are going to float over here on the surface of the pond. The nice thing about putting in these water lilies is they're going to create shade. So one of the things from an ecosystem perspective is we want a sunny situation. Too much sun though can actually become detrimental. It's going to overheat the water. Warm water holds less dissolved oxygen, so we want to make sure that we have cooler zones and things like that, places for those fish to kind of go and kind of get out of that sunlight. But also that shaded situation is going to limit the amount of photosynthetic activity that's actually coming down inside of the pond, so it's not going to get as much algal growth. Having these different surfaces, having different types of plants located in different levels within that ecosystem is going to give you the best results. So now what I want to do is I want to wrap all this stuff up, and we want to run out to a couple different projects so you could actually see firsthand what it's going to be like to actually install these plants. So all these plants are going to be important for the function, but they are going to deliver beautiful results for years to come. So Andrew and I are loading up the van with all of the aquatic plants. We have a good mixture of stuff, mostly perennial, little bit of tropical type stuff, ground covers, creeping jenny, pickerel, sweet flag. We have this golden sedge, got some really cool stuff in here. Andrew right now is back here picking out some of the water lilies as we speak.
Hey Ed, how you doing?
Good, good, good.
We got a bunch of water lilies. Some of them are hybrids. They're particularly selected for their beautiful colors on their flowers. What I love about lilies is they bring a lot more biodiversity to the pond, allow for a lot of protection for all that life. So frogs, all your insects, fish can swim through all the strands or protection from the predators. It's harder for them to see. One of the things I look for is, like on this lily here, it's got a lot of new growth coming on it. I also like to look for shoots for any buds. I don't see any on this one, but I really like this new growth. That's a sign of a healthy plant.
So the pond we have is big. So we're looking for a lot of coverage. Why don't we pick out a few and we'll load it up?
Sounds good.
All right.